So previously, I've made a video on this channel about how to start a farm with no money. And the main takeaway from that video was that honestly, it's impossible for you to start a farm with no money. Now, I personally feel like probably I communicated it the wrong way, because when a lot of people clicked on that video, they hoped to figure out how to actually start a farm with no money, but I just blasted them by telling them that, you can't start a farm with no money. So in today's video, I'm going to go ahead and actually share with you how to realistically start a farm with as little money as possible. This is going to be like an action-based video. I mean, with actual steps that you actually need to go through, the things that you need to do in order for you to start a farm with as little money as possible. Because if you're in a particular position and you want to start a farm with no money, most probably it's because you don't have money, honestly. Yeah, you probably don't have any savings. Maybe you're making some little money, but you can't save at all. All the money is, for running your household, your home, or paying for tuition if you're in school, or whatever else you're doing. But you realistically, honestly, want to start a farm with your entire heart. So how do you make this happen? Well, in today's video, I'm going to be breaking this down into, a bit finer details for you to understand exactly how to do this. And then hopefully by the end of the video, you'll have figured out a better roadmap, an actual roadmap that you can actually follow and utilize for you to get to this goal of you actually starting and having a farm running just like me right here, but starting out with so little money. Now, before we go into the depths of it, I would like to clear the air or to clarify on a few things. First of all, being broke is not a crime. Yeah, that's what you need to understand. I mean, a lot of times when you talk about, someone having no money, a lot of times it comes off as if someone has no money, you feel like you're a failure, you're a criminal in life. What you need to understand is that, again, being broke and having no money is I would say a phase in life. It's a phase that everyone goes through. And in the end, it really depends on who you are. Yeah, it depends on different levels. I mean, for someone who has had $1 million before, if they have $10,000, they'll feel broke, completely broke. For someone who has never heard of what $10,000 is, if you give them $1,000, they'll feel like a rich person, yeah? And someone else, $200 is a lot of money. So in the end, it's very difficult for you to define being broke. But what you need to understand is that simply it's a state, it's a transition, yeah? As long as you don't have the poverty mindset, as long as you're not the kind of person who believes that you can never make it in life, you can never make ends meet, you can never be successful, as long as you're not that kind of person, someone who is consistently sad, then you need to understand that it's possible for you to actually build wealth and for you to make money, yeah? So being broke is not a crime. What you need to understand is that you can actually work out of it, yeah? You can work yourself out of it. That's the first thing. But number two, you can get to the very top even after being broke for a really long time, yeah? It's not like something that's going to remain permanently. Now, the second thing that I want to clarify is that it is true starting a farm requires money, but you don't need to have too much money to start a farm, yeah? A lot of times, like I've shared with you guys before, you're going to need money to start a farm. Yeah? You're going to need money. And it's very easy to get carried away. While growing up, we grew up with our families, with our parents, and they were carrying out, subsistence farming. They grow a few crops, they keep 3, 4, 5 chickens over there, and it was okay. Now, things have completely flipped around. Things have changed. You can continue doing that. There are still a lot of families who continue doing that. But if you want to do it as a business, if you want to get to the levels that I've gotten to, if you want to get to the levels that a lot of other, big farmers, rich farmers have gotten to, then you can't do it that way, yeah? And now, it's very easy for you to wake up one day and just come and look at me right now. You look at, the farms that I do have, the properties that I've managed to amass over time, and think to yourself, that, hey, I think it requires a lot of money to get to this point. Well, I just want to tell you that you don't need too much money to start out. Personally, when I started out, I didn't even have a piece of land, a single piece of land. My very first chicken house I built on my dad's land. In fact, it's still on my dad's land, yeah? It's still on my dad's land. If he wanted to throw me out tomorrow, he could, yeah? So it was about 1/3 of an acre. Well, it's not like he gave me 1/3 of an acre, but I fenced 1/3 of an acre. When I built a chicken house, the chicken house is about, 8 meters by 15 meters. That's a really small area. But in order to provide for biosecurity, he allowed me to fence about 1/3 of an acre. I think it's even less than 1/3 of an acre. But, well, I fenced a section of the land, and that's where the chicken house is. That was a great alternative. It was a great option that I did have, but a lot of people don't have such options. Yeah, everything else I've personally immersed in my life, I built with my own money. Yeah? I saved up, I had the farm grow, I had all these things coming up, and I slowly started to, you know, buy land, build this stuff. I mean, I remember it just like yesterday when I was purchasing this land where the farm is right here. Yeah, I do remember it. So what you need to understand is that you don't need to start so much, you don't need too much money to start out right there. You can start with whatever you have. And so that leads me into the very next bullet point. Yeah, let's dive right into how to actually, you know, get your farm started with as little as possible. So getting into starting a farm with little money, you need to consolidate it into your head that you can't start a farm with no money. Yeah, that is the first thing I need to debunk. You can't start a farm with no money. Now, of course, you can start a farm with no money if, you know, probably you have inherited land, and then someone gives you maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 chickens. You start raising them, you multiply them, you leave them on free range, and then, you know, they keep increasing, they keep increasing. I mean, in a few years, you could probably be at 1,000 chickens, yeah, if you continue that way. But that will take you forever, yeah? That will take you really, really forever. Maybe someone comes and gives you a goat or 2 goats. You already have ancestral land that you've inherited, land your parents have given to you. Then there you do have an advantage. But realistically speaking, most people don't even have that alternative. So what you need to understand is that it is impossible for you to start a farm with no money, because a farm is going to require land. It doesn't matter how small that it is, you're going to require land. If you're not going to have land, then you're going to have to rent some form of land, and then renting, of course, simply means you're going to have to pay. So you need some form of money. You're going to have to put up structures. For example, I'll put up chicken structures that you can see right here in the distance. Those do require money. You can see some tanks in the background right there, you know, supplying water to the chicken houses. You don't always need a tank, but those also do require some money. You're going to need inputs, whether it is chicken feed, whether it is pesticides to spray your pests, whether it is money to buy, you know, the seeds and all that kind of stuff. You're going to need something to put onto the farm, and that's going to require money. So if you're thinking in your head that you're going to start the farm without any money, come on, just forget about it. Throw it out of your head, and I mean, get real. And once you get real and get a proper reality check that you can't do it without money, then it's easy for you to figure out the rest of the things, which we shall dive into right away. So now that you've understood that, the first thing you need to understand is that you have to get some form of money. You need little money. You don't need to have too much money. So what are the alternatives when it comes to actually getting money to start a farm? I mean, we want to talk about realistic alternatives, because you're probably at a point where you don't have money and you're just trying to figure out, how the hell do I get this money? Yeah, I'll give you some alternatives. The first alternative that you can actually utilize is, you know, getting money from another business that you're probably already running. Yeah. Now, this is honestly a really hard one. Yeah, because I mean, I wouldn't say it's really hard. For a lot of people, it's easy to start out businesses and have them thrive and prosper. But for a lot of people, they just can't start businesses. Most probably the reason you're in this position, the reason you want to start a farm, is because you don't have another business. You don't have something else that's bringing you money. Yeah, I mean, starting a business requires a lot of resilience. It requires a lot of perseverance. It requires a lot of knowledge in some circumstances. It requires sometimes experience. So it's not something really easy. I mean, if you're in a position where you totally don't have money, you haven't started, you don't have money, you don't have any experience, you don't have anything, I wouldn't advise you to go that route, because, I mean, you're going to have to start another business. It has chances of succeeding and failing. And then if it's failing, then you're not getting money. You're actually utilizing your time, because you're spending time over there with the business, trying to grow the business, trying to grow everything. But then you're not getting the returns. The returns in this case are the money. Yeah. So it's not something that I advise you to do if you know you want to start out. Yeah. Now, the second alternative, which I believe is like the obvious alternative that anyone should shoot for, is look for a job. Yeah. Let's look for a job. Now, I know this might sound crazy, because you're thinking to yourself, well, guys, I've looked for a job. Doctor, I've looked for a job. I've looked for a job for weeks. I've looked for a job for months. I've looked for a job for years, and I haven't got a job. I'll tell you something. You just don't want it so bad. You don't want it so bad. If you want it so bad, you would get the job. Yeah? I'll tell you the honest truth. I mean, for me, now of course, the example I'm going to use might not sound really relevant in your circumstances, because it feels like, you know, I'm a doctor and you're not a doctor, but this applies in each and every field. I mean, I do remember the time when I went and I was hunting for a job. This was after my internship. I wanted to get a job as a doctor. I mean, I spent about maybe 2-3 months without getting a job, and I was just sending applications over here, there. I mean, it was quite a tough time, because I didn't imagine that I could be a doctor and not get a job. So I was taking my applications to a lot of places, and one random day I was called for this application. Well, I wouldn't say it's a random day. I qualified for an interview. So I was called to go do an interview, and I went for this interview, and I remember I had prepared the previous night. You know, the previous days I'd been reading because this was an organization that I wanted to get into, and you know, I did my research about the organization. I did my research about all the possible questions that they could ask me. And then we are in this lounge where we've been called, and you know, people are waiting to get in for the interviews. And I remember this guy seated next to me. Well, he wasn't next to me, but he was amongst the rest of the guys. And he was like, you guys, me for interviews, I don't waste my time preparing, you know. I've done so many interviews that, you know, these days when they call me, I just go. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, whatever, we go on to the next one. And at that very moment, I told myself, there's no way this guy is getting this job. Completely no way. How the hell does he think that without preparation, without a positive mindset, without him believing that he's going to get the freaking job, he's going to come there and ace us? You know, some of us who have sat down and prepared and read and gone through, you know, done our research, done our homework about the company and about everything that they do. How the hell does he think he's going to ace us? Yeah. And of course, when he got inside there, I got the job. He didn't get the job. Yeah. And I can tell you, it's the reason he hadn't gotten jobs before. Why? Because I personally prepared myself. I told myself that it's a do or die, and whatever I have to go through, I will prepare myself and be in the best position to take up this job. Yeah, that's it. And for me to get this application, I mean, I remember at around that point, I'd been working different kinds of places, taking applications to all these places, trying to get the jobs. Yeah, it's because I placed myself in that position. I believe I had taken my applications to so many places, and I would physically, you know, move there. Sometimes I didn't have money. I would walk there to go and take my papers over there. So you need to make sure that you just put in the effort. Yeah, what you need to understand is that, I mean, a lot of people are looking for employees. I personally also still look for employees on my farm. I look for employees in all kinds of places. Yeah, people will get fired. Yeah. Now, if you're enthusiastic enough, if you want it badly enough, you will get it. You will work each and every day. You will take your applications in all kinds of places. All you need to do is make sure that, you know, you're not segregative when it does come to work. Don't be like, hey, I can't work in this kind of place. I can't do this kind of work. No. Remember, you're broke. I mean, you're broke. You need money. You need money to invest into the farm. You're going to have to get this money somehow, somewhere. So if you want it bad enough, you will get it. Yeah. Look, go to all these places, take applications, prepare when they call you for interviews. Prepare as well as possible so that when the person reaches the interview and they're asking questions, they're like, I have no alternative but to give you the job. I mean, I do remember that, you know, when I was preparing for my interviews, I watched YouTube videos about how to prepare for interviews and get jobs. And at around that time, I remember the guy who was tutoring in one of those YouTube videos was like, you know, in the end, after you've done the interview, they'll ask you, or they'll tell you to ask any questions. And the question you should ask, or one of the questions you should ask is, what does the ideal candidate look like for you, or the ideal person for you to give the job? And I remember in my interview, I asked that question, and I remember the HR clearly telling me, you know, I asked her who would be the ideal client or the ideal person for this position. And the HR told me clearly, someone like you. You know, someone like you, someone who has the passion, someone who has the interest, someone who has the enthusiasm and the knowledge like you. I set up of that room when I knew that I had the job. And interesting enough, because I'd been taking interviews to different places, I mean, I was called for interviews, I think, to 3 different places. And those 3 different places, I did the interviews, and all of them gave me jobs in a space of like 4 days. I had 3 jobs, and I only had to choose one amongst all of them. Meanwhile, there's someone else who has been taking applications to all kinds of places and he hasn't gotten a job. I probably took around 6 or 7 around, and 3 of them called them for interviews, and I got all the 3. Yeah, you understand? So it's really, really, really important that you understand that if you want to go for it, you've got to go for it. So don't be the pessimistic kind of person. Don't be the victim. Don't be the kind of person who is like, well, there's no jobs these days. Of course, there's no jobs. Yeah. So, I mean, there are other people who do have the jobs. So it is the ones who are interested, the ones who are competitive, the ones who want it so bad who will get the job. So that's the second thing. Yeah. Be interested enough, be passionate enough, be focused enough, and look for a job. So when you get a job, then you have money coming in. So when you have money coming in, then you can start saving. I mean, you've been living with no money, you've been broke. So when you start getting in money, don't start celebrating like you are going to die if you didn't have the job. Yeah. So a lot of people, when they do get the money in, then they start going for parties. They start buying everything that they wanted to buy. They buy those nice designer shoes. They start going for trips all over the world and all that kind of stuff. It's okay. That stuff is okay, but its time is there. There is time for everything. For me, I was a doctor. When I got my job, I literally saved up everything. I was getting about between $950 and $1,000 at that point, and I was paying my rent. My rent was about $50. Yeah, and I think everything I was living on for an entire month was about $100, and I was keeping everything else. Yeah. Now it's because I wanted to utilize that money to invest into the farm. You understand? So I could have enjoyed my life. I could have bought a car. I could have saved up and bought a car and got a very nice apartment to live in and all this kind of stuff. But I had my vision. I had my goal. Yeah, I wanted to start a farm. Those are the things that you need to focus on. Yeah, you've been living a broke life. Continue living a freaking broke life and save up the money so that you can invest it into the farm. Yeah, because I mean, I tell you that if you start spending and doing all these other things, your cost of living is going to just increase. Your standard is going to increase. And then it doesn't matter how much more money you get, you're never going to save because your standard of living has increased. Yeah. So save up as much as possible. Now, the third alternative for you getting money when it does come to starting the farm is using friends and family. Now, these are a great alternative if you do have them. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have them. I mean, if your parents are rich and they do have money, they can give you money. Or if your parents really can sacrifice for you, they can give you money. They don't need to be too rich, but as long as they prioritize you in one way or another, they'll give you the money to invest into the farm. So that could be a great alternative. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, that's not an alternative. Yeah, they don't have rich parents. They don't have all these kinds of parents. So it might not be an option for you. But if you have friends and parents who can give you money, that's a great one. Yeah, you can utilize it to start your farm. And option number 4 is getting investors. Now, if you're in a position where you're broke, you've never started a farm, most probably you're broke because you don't even know how to start and run a business, I want to tell you that it's going to be so difficult for you to get an investor. It doesn't matter how good you are at writing proposals and all this kind of stuff. It's going to be so difficult because, I mean, with this day and age, with everything that's happening, people want to invest their money where they see light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. Currently, I get too many people coming towards me because they want to invest money into my farms, into my businesses, and all that kind of stuff. Why? Because they see that I know what I'm doing. Yeah, they can see that there's light at the end of the tunnel. They understand that what I'm doing is well figured out. So they're willing to invest into what I'm doing. But no one is going to get their money, their hard-earned money that they have worked for, and come and invest into your thing with nothing like a proven concept. I mean, it's going to be very difficult for you to think about that alternative. So again, consistently, I get guys emailing me, sending me messages that, hey doc, I have this plan, I have this, I'm passionate, I've learned as much about poultry as possible. I want to start a farm, but I don't have money. Can you invest into me? I'm like, really? Of course, I don't believe in you. Yeah, I believe in what you can do. I mean, I'm the one who has trained you. Hopefully, yeah, you've learned enough, but how do I just get my money and put it over there? I mean, there's a lot of other things I could invest my money in. Yeah, a lot of proven things. I would rather take it to the stock exchange or something like that. Yeah. So you need to make sure that you understand that people are not just going to invest their money into you just like that. Yeah. So that's an alternative. You could be lucky and you get it, but it's going to be a very difficult route for you to take. Now, the next step after that is for you to acquire knowledge so that you reduce your chances of failure. Yeah. Now, of course, you've saved up, you've worked really hard, and you've started getting in money, you've saved in money. Now you want to make sure that you reduce your chances of failure as much as possible. This is something that I tried as much as possible to do when I started out. Yeah, in comparison to a lot of people, I also didn't have money. I mean, when I was starting out, I felt like I didn't have money. Now, of course, I was working as a doctor and I was saving what, $800, $900 every month. So, I mean, you can say at a particular point I properly had money. But for me, compared to my goals and everything I wanted to start with, I had no money. I was broke. Yeah. So for other people, that's too much money. For another group of people, that was little money. So I had to reduce my chances of failure. And the way I did that is by learning as much as possible. Yeah. So I went on YouTube, watched as many YouTube videos as possible, learned as much as possible. At that time, I mean, the information was really, really scanty, terrible, very scanty. But I watched as much of the videos as possible. I mean, I would watch people's very boring videos, some of them 20 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes some of them up to 1 hour. And I'm just seeing the kinds of things that this person is doing inside the chicken house. I'm just trying to figure them out. Yeah. And then I would watch another one, then watch another one. Then I understand that, oh, this person does this, but this person does it another way. Yeah. Probably this is a better way of doing it. Yeah. I tried to contact some of them. I think I only managed to visit one farmer then, and it's because he was related to me in one way or another, like a distant cousin or something like that. I managed to go over to his farm and I did some, looked around, saw the way he was doing things. But I had tried to get information visiting some of the established farmers and they refused. Yeah, they completely refused. And I totally understand. I mean, right now, because I also don't allow farmers on my farm for biosecurity reasons, I 100% understand. Yeah. Now, you might be lucky that you might have people who might accept you to visit over the farms, but you do have the advantage of having this YouTube channel. I mean, you've watched a lot of YouTube videos from this channel. Yeah. You can read books, you can go on the internet, download good books, download as many books as possible about poultry farming and all this kind of stuff, so that you can gather all this information and, you know, get to learn as much as possible. So for me, it's an option that I took to get as much information as possible to minimize the chances and the risk of me failing. Then the next step is to start small and learn. Again, you've invested your money, you've gotten this knowledge, you know, you've done all the due diligence to minimize your chances of failure. Now you want to make sure that you also learn by experiences. You learn from your mistakes, yeah? A big mistake or something that's quite common for people starting out is that they start, and because now they feel like they've gotten some money, they've gotten some form of experience, they want to go so quickly. They want to go like Dr. Daniel went. They want to go like, you know, their neighbor went, like whosoever went. No, that's not how they do things. You're not in a competition. That's what you need to remember. Just like you are not in a competition with anyone like when you are broke, you're not in a competition with anyone when you start the farm. I mean, that's what you need to remember. There's no competition, and it's all about you increasing your chances of success. So start slowly. There's no need to rush. Yeah, don't be like, well, okay, now I have the money. I have enough money to start with 1,000 baht. Let me start with 1,000 baht. For me, I started with 800 bahts. And it's something that I could handle, yeah? For you, 1,000 bahts might be too much of a risk, yeah? So maybe 500 bahts might be a better alternative, or maybe even 250 bahts might be a better alternative for you to test out the market, to test out your expertise, to test out the knowledge that you've acquired, just to ensure that you implement everything the right way, yeah? So you need to ensure 100% and guarantee 100% that, you know, you're doing things the right way, by ensuring that you start slowly so that, you know, you get knowledge slowly by slowly, consolidate all this knowledge, and then with time, after you've consolidated the knowledge, you've gotten all the experience, you've gotten all the systems together, you can just explode, you know, just reproduce everything you've been doing really quickly. But it's because you've gotten the knowledge, the fundamental knowledge that's required for your success. And then the final point I'm going to be sharing in this video is you've got to cut your running costs as much as possible. And how do you cut the running costs? Number one, it's by improvising, yeah? So what you need to understand is that you're going to probably do things a different way, yeah? For example, I personally believe I have improvised, yeah? You see with the chicken house that I do have here, it's a 2-story chicken house, yeah? It's not something that's done commonly around the world by a lot of people, yeah? But it's because I had to improvise. Now, considering the weather that I do have and the country that I do live in, it's a great alternative because it's not so hot over here, so I don't need to build my roof so high, so the chicken house there need to be, you know, so high. That's a great alternative. It's something that has really helped, yeah? So it's a 2-story chicken house. But number two, I have used like wooden poles, you know, like poles, you know, eucalyptus poles, iron sheeting on the side. I've tried to make it as cheap as possible. Instead of using like, you know, really expensive material and all this kind of stuff, I've had to improvise, yeah? Now for a lot of people, this is probably not improvisation. They feel like this is too good. But for me, it's improvisation because there are very many, I would say, better types of houses, yeah? So in the future, I'm considering starting, you know, a chicken house with an environmentally controlled house. I mean, AC houses and all that kind of stuff, expand that way. So in comparison to that, this is improvisation. It's because I was trying to save as much as possible, yeah? So maybe what are the other things that you might need to do to improvise? Maybe it's about the drinking water, yeah? So for example, for me over here, I have automated drinkers. I have tanks, as I've already shown you guys. You know, you can see the tanks over there in the background. So the water comes by gravity into the drinkers. And that is a great thing. But, I mean, for a lot of people, it might not be something that you're able to do. You might not be able to have tanks or things like that. You're not able to have the money. And so what does that mean? You need to use manual drinkers, yeah? And with manual drinkers comes more work because the risk of disease is increased. But you most probably don't have the money to buy, you know, these automatic drinkers because they're certainly quite expensive, yeah? Each one of them is, you know, maybe $15, something like that, each one of them. So that's probably too much money for you, and you think to yourself, well, I'll just use manual drinkers because a manual drinker could probably cost less than a half of that, yeah, for just making one manual drink. I mean, you could just use 2 jerry cans, probably a fifth of that, you can get a manual drinker. So it could be a great alternative for you to utilize, to implement on the farm. But then the problem with that is that it comes with its risks of, you know, possible contamination of the water and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, you've got to be willing to work harder. I mean, put in the hard work for you to be able to, you know, reduce the cost, but also increase your chances of success, yeah? So you put in the hard work compared to a lot of people. Sometimes you have to be involved yourself. For me, for example, currently I do have quite a number of people working for me all around the farm. I'm able to afford to pay them. But for you, probably you're not able to afford to pay them, yeah? You're probably not able to afford to do that. So what do? You ensure that you get involved yourself, yeah? Implement things yourself, get involved personally, physically. That way you don't need to spend out money paying other people, and do things well enough for you to succeed, yeah? So I believe, I mean, these points are a very good blueprint for you to follow. If you follow and utilize this, it doesn't matter how broke you are, you should be able to arrive to your goal of actually starting and running a successful farm with as little money as possible. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, smash the notification bell, that way you never miss out on an upload. Catch you very soon with another video. Lots of love. Bye-bye.